This is a recording of the Kansas City Secular AA Speaker Meeting held every Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m. at HJ's Youth and Community Center, 6425 Warnell Road, Kansas City, Missouri. This is episode 16, and our speaker is Deborah.
Welcome to the Secular Speaker Meeting. I'm Simon, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Simon.
Ask Marley to read the preamble.
AA is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover. We have no dues or fees for membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help others to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Marley. Our secular group attempts to maintain a tradition of free expression and to conduct a meeting where all may feel free to express any doubts or disbeliefs that they may have, and to share their own personal form of spiritual experience or search for to the rejection of it. In keeping with AA tradition, we do not endorse or oppose any form of religion or atheism. Our only wish is to help those who want recovery without having to accept anyone else's beliefs or having to deny their own. During the meeting, I'll pass around a little wicker basket. If you'd like to put $1 in to help contribute to the podcast, coffee, and rent, it's always appreciated, but it's not necessary. We recognize extended periods of sobriety. Is there anybody celebrating any amount of sobriety that they would like to celebrate today? All right. Pass around the microphone. This is a podcast, or not yet, but it will be. So if you don't want to participate in that or be broadcast to the masses, you can let me know or switch the off button on the microphone or just pass it to the next person or not talk. That's all fine. But if you'd like to, you can introduce yourself however you feel comfortable. And although we are all alcoholics, I believe, here tonight, anybody is welcome. It's an open meeting, so if you've got friends or family who are curious about the process or the meetings or whatnot, they're more than welcome. And our website is secularaaspeaker.org. You can listen to all the past podcasts there. So we start the night off with the speaker. Then we'll, 20, 30 minutes of that. Then we'll pass around the microphone if you'd like to ask any questions or make any comments on what you heard. That'd be the appropriate time to do that. And if you've got something else on your mind that you'd like to talk about, you can do that then too. Without further ado, our speaker tonight is Deborah, and you can take it from here.
I'm Deborah. I'm a recovering addict.
Hi, Deborah.
It's a pleasure to tell my story. However, I'm nervous because I haven't told my story in a long time. That'll be part of what I go through. And I've also never told my story at this phase of my development by definition. So let's see. We'll see what happens. I had my last drink of alcohol, and I say that very carefully. I had my last drink of alcohol on July 4th, 2005. I had a period of sobriety before that. So my history with alcohol was that there was never any alcohol in our house, which may or may not be true. In my later years, especially in rehab, it may have been that my mother was drunk all the time. But my father was the designated alcoholic. Something had happened when I was young, and there was no alcohol in our house. And I was pretty... definitely not a social person in high school. I wasn't around people who were drinking. If I'd been around people drinking, doing heroin, doing coke, doing whatever, I would have done it. So I had my first drink at 19. And all I can say is that I actually went into the bathroom at the party I was in and looked in the mirror and went, this is how I'm supposed to feel. This is exactly how I'm supposed to feel. So I had a fairly high bottom, my first recovery. I was 38 years old. It was 1988, and it was here, actually, in Kansas City. I had, in school, in graduate school, I smoked marijuana. I did a little bit of acid, did some Quaaludes. That was the days of Quaaludes. I still miss the Quaaludes. So when I came here, actually, I was working for a pharmaceutical company, and they would drug test. So alcohol was the only safe thing, only safe thing to do. So I had people in my life at that time who took me out to lunch and said, you know, every time I've been with you, you've been drunk. Like, and I would be like, oh, you know, my line to anybody who had anything to say to me was, I come from a long line of alcoholics. And that I was really proud of that. And I do come from all of the brothers in my father's, the mother that my father had, three of them committed suicide. My father quit drinking when I was 2, so in 1952. And the women I don't know about, but all the brothers killed themselves or died in insane asylums. The women, I don't know. Were they quietly drinking? I don't really know. So in 1988, I literally one day, there was a TV show at the time, which maybe some of you will remember. It was called Cagney and Lacey. It was two women cops. And Cagney, the tall blonde one, there was an arc where she had started going to AA, and she stood up and she said, I'm an alcoholic. And I'd certainly heard of AA, what we all think, you know, it's certainly for other people, not for me. And there was something about one night after the 4th bourbon and water, just the words came to me out of Cagney's mouth. It was, I'm an alcoholic. And so I called. It was like 9:00 at night, and I called AA. Went through there were yellow pages then. Right. And I don't know, I thought they were going to send a bus for me or something. I really did. So she told me about a meeting the next day. I think I probably said, I can't go during the day. I work, and I don't know. I walked into my first meeting, and it was set up so that you walked into a room. There were a lot of people, but I was literally, I just was going to do this. And they, as soon as I announced and said it was my first meeting, they just very seamlessly, almost like a play, took me off into a small room with 4 or 5 people, and they told my story. I cried. I said if I went, I would speak. I said, I blubbered some things, and it all made sense to me. It just totally made sense. So I think I know I did 90 and 90. I remember that. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. Everybody around me I didn't even have to say I'd quit drinking. People just knew it. And as far as AA went, I went to meetings, and that's all I did. And I worked the steps, and that's what I did. And after about a year, in retrospect, it's easy to think about it now. In retrospect, I had started doing some personal development things. I had started doing more spiritual things. I was feeling great. And it was like, well, I've done the 12 steps. So what else is there? What else do you have? I've graduated. And I very seamlessly walked away. I can't remember any decision that I'm not going to do this anymore. I just walked away. And our company was merged, and I got sent overseas. So I moved to England to work, and I was around a whole set of people who did not know. They had not seen the Deborah that people talked to about being drunk. And I didn't tell them. Not by design. Again, not by design. I guess I also really did not get the medical concept at all. I just thought I graduated and I was okay. I didn't drink. I had no interest in drinking, and there were no other drugs around. So, after 4 years, it was my engagement. I got engaged, and some people invited us to their home, and we came downstairs after we unpacked, and there was a bottle of champagne on the table, and I'd been saying no easily with nothing, and I picked up the glass of champagne, had a couple sips with the toast, and it was that same thing. It was exactly the same thing. This is how I'm supposed to feel. So it literally, I had been sober 4 years, and it took no time. I was drinking in the morning. I did end up getting married drunk. And 7 months later, he left for absolutely all the right reasons. And I drank for another 13 years. I drank for another 13 years without ever, not for a millisecond, did I think, oh, I felt better. I went to AA. I got sober. I felt better. It never even occurred to me. I stopped this time. My sobriety day, or the last day I had a drink date, is because I had 3 grand mal seizures and almost died. My husband found me having a seizure, got me to the ER. I had another seizure, and it's pretty well thought I had one. When he'd been out during the day and came back, and I was sleeping. So I was like 4 days in intensive care, and I woke up with a business card of a shrink with the back of it. This was in Oregon, with Serenity Lane written on it, and that was the local rehab center. So I got out of the hospital, and it was like I got out on a Friday. It was up to me to call them on Monday to get myself admitted. And so even my husband, at the time, who found his wife having a seizure in bed, by like Sunday afternoon, was like, you don't really need to do that, do you? And I was adamant. I woke up willing. I woke up absolutely willing. And I was like, yeah, I do. I need to do this. And I went and got myself evaluated, and I did an outpatient program. And then they had a program of once a week, 2 years of recovery support. Except the first day in rehab, it's group therapy. And then the counselor says, well, okay, you girls take Deborah to the AA meeting. I'm like, oh, well, that didn't work for me. That didn't work. She's like, well, we don't care. We don't really care whether it worked or not. You're going to go. There was an agreement to go, I think, twice a week. Yeah. At least 2 meetings a week. So my first meeting was in the club, with all those sayings on the walls. Oh God. And then I remembered, I did remember what it was like to be in this community of people. And so I was like, okay, I remembered 90 and 90. They told us in rehab, 90 and 90. So I was going to a morning meeting. Just got up every day at 6:30, went to a 7:00 meeting, and there was a Sunday night women's meeting. And that's what I did every day for a long time, for a really long time. And got a sponsor right away. And I know that for sure this time it was very clear in the rehab environment. And then I heard it again. What happened to the clock?
Down, so do you want to see when you have...
Yeah, I do. That's why I moved over here, so I can gauge. So,
I'm wondering about that squeal.
Yeah.
It's driving me nuts.
I thought it was, I have ringing in my ears. At first I thought it was that. Should I go on or should I wait?
I would wait.
I think so. Make it
What was that?
Was that like an alarm?
What'd you do?
Percussive maintenance.
Percussive maintenance.
Okay, Act 2. Okay, cool. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So, woke up absolutely willing after 13 years of, not even a thought that sobriety was a good idea. I mean, the main thing I worked on during that last phase of drinking was better hangover cures. The internet was available. You could do all kinds of Googling. How can I just not be hungover? And of course, I mean, for ending up with seizures like that, by the end, I was drinking 24/7 and hiding vodka. I bought purses so that the big vodka bottle could fit in them. And I had a good couple of years of that at my age. It's amazing. So there were two things happened. One was it was really clear. My husband was, at the time, it was my fourth husband actually. It was really clear that we were not going to stay married. And, for once I just had that notion of we're going to part with love. So it was my fourth year that we finally separated, and I decided that I'd do an internship at the rehab center where I was treated, and then I got certified as a drug and alcohol counselor, and I ended up my last year of work there. I was sitting in the same seat and had the same office as my recovery support counselor for the whole time that I was in outpatient treatment. So my early recovery was really hard. I look back now on decisions I made. I mean, definitely a decision not to stay married was a good one, a healthy one. The decision to be an addictions counselor, it's the job that's most fit me in my whole life, was a good one. And then it was just surrounded by insane life decisions. And I was really clear. I mean, I was really clear that every day got better. Every month got better. Certainly every year got better. So I had a lifelong dream. I'm that 11-year-old girl who sat in front of the black and white TV and saw John Kennedy and Sergeant Shriver talk about the Peace Corps. And I would cry. I can remember it. So during this Renaissance time for me in my advanced age, I hit the send button on a Peace Corps application when I was 60 years old. And there was, in retrospect, I still don't know. I'm going to end this talk with the kind of confusion I'm in. So it is experience, strength, and hope. I have hope for myself. I am in a confused state. There was a bit of a geographic. I mean, I do have to admit that. It was a reset button, and it was just an awesome ride. I left in 2012. I knew that the country where I was serving, the first country, Armenia, I knew it did not have any AA. I do know in retrospect, I mean, I now know for sure I could have told Peace Corps I wanted to be in countries where there was at least some possibility in the capital of Alcoholics Anonymous. However, I did my usual, like I wrote essays about how I didn't need it in order to qualify and all that business. So there was no AA. I didn't go to meetings, not because I didn't want to. It didn't exist. In fact, I myself, for 2 of the years I was in Armenia, was the person you'd call from the World Organization if you wanted AA in Armenia. And all during that time, there was each year there would be one person in the group coming in who was also in recovery. And, I'd be, oh my God, I miss it so much. And I was talking to people. I had kind of a sponsor. I was talking to people in AA the whole time, but always, oh, I miss it so much. So I ended up then going to Africa. So I was in East Africa where they spoke English, but most of the AA was like very, 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 very religiously based. Christian. Christian, Jesus does it. and they would meet once a month. And so I really didn't have much available there. Again, I haven't had a drink all this time. And then there was a small group of expats when I went to Senegal. And I was so happy. I did the steps. I got a sponsor back in the States, or here. I got a sponsor here, and worked the steps again, which I hadn't done in a while. So when I landed here, which was last July, from Senegal, I was in Florida and started going to meetings. I just, went to meetings every day. And I love the fellowship. It's everything that I said. All the time that I've been gone, I've been saying, I just love sitting in a circle of heroes, because I think we're all heroes. I think every 5 minutes that I don't do some kind of chemical, it's heroic. And I missed it. Except what was starting to happen to me in Florida was they ended every meeting. Every meeting was the Jesus prayer. And, I'm still working through this. I couldn't do it. For a couple of times I would just leave early. And then I just stopped going. I stopped going to meetings. So there were two things happening. One was I didn't drink the entire time that I was, in the Peace Corps. And in Armenia, everything is done with vodka. Everything is done with vodka. Even school, I wasn't a teacher, but even celebrations in the school, there's shots of vodka. I was at a party where there were 5 shots of vodka lining up next to me, because I'd be, well, but no vodka. Okay, well, you'll have wine. No, I don't drink. And, oh God. It was never a challenge. However, I started smoking cigarettes in Armenia because they're 25 cents a pack. Who would not do that? I mean, if there were heroin, that would have been the same thing. I also started binging on sugar, and I have a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. So when I was in Florida, the other thing to also say is that in order to quit smoking in Armenia, I really did want to quit because I was altitude, my heart was upset. And so they gave me Xanax, and it worked. I did quit smoking, which I really needed to do. And I haven't smoked since then, except that's a 2-year Xanax, because it was OTC in Africa, which I just kicked 2 months ago. So this all leads me to, I have not had a drink. And I know that in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, I can stand up and celebrate my 14th birthday, right? On July 4th. And I no longer feel like I can do that. I have smoked cigarettes. When you're in Malawi, you smoke Malawi Gold. I had that 2 years of Xanax. Of course, it was prescribed to me for a very short period of time, and not for the length of time I took it. I just had, I'm less than 48 hours from my last sugar binge, which is that's the thing that will kill me now. That's the thing that will kill me. So this is in no way, at this phase of my development, I'm in no way, I'm clear that the next drink could kill me, for sure. Another withdrawal means more seizures, most likely. However, I found this group where I definitely feel like I can explore the spiritual basis for my recovery. It's not religious. It never has been. And it's not... It is about a fellowship of people that I can be honest with. Wow. That's actually, I've never said that. I had a feeling I was going to discover something in telling my story this time. What I know I need, it's not just a happy little fellowship of people in AA. I had that in Florida, and I was uncomfortable. here, I mean, I don't know if it's okay here for me to go on and on and on about my other chemicals. If it's not, you can edit it out. I don't think you're going to, though. I think that this is a place where I feel like I can be completely honest. And it worries me because my sobriety has completely, I did go to, I went to treatment. I got information. I got information that I didn't have before. I mean, definitely. And I got enough information to know that, the next cigarette, the next coffee leads to cigarettes, sugar leads to coffee, leads to cigarettes. It's a cycle. And I'm much more comfortable at this phase of my development saying that I'm a recovering addict. And I have less than 48 hours without trying to alter my mood in some way with some kind of chemical. Now, I know that the steps, the working of the steps in a community of people that support me, challenge me, and inspire me is absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical to maintaining another day of sobriety. I'm not talking myself into I don't need 12-step recovery. I love 12-step recovery. The part that I was so like, oh, I miss it so much while I didn't have it available is still very present to me. The ability to come in here, sit down, and know that what I aspire to and how difficult it might be. And I know that each and every one of you can give me 10 tools that I've probably heard about, maybe. Some I haven't. And most of them I've never really tried. I know that you will be in the solution, which I could not count on in the people around me while I was out of this fellowship. So, what it was like, back to when I tell my story, I like to, what it was like. It was awful while I was drinking. It was, I was reduced to a small nothingness and no vision or no hope other than trying to not be either too drunk, which toward the end, I couldn't even get drunk, or not shake. And where's the next vodka going to come from so that I can even think about living. So that's what it was like to be living in the addiction to alcohol. It was like that with cigarettes. It was absolutely like that with cigarettes. And it's definitely like that with sugar, for sure. So what was it like? It was like being in prison and being small and being sick and tired. So what happened? I got sick and tired of being sick and tired twice now. This time it's lasted longer and it's given me the perspective to see the other things. There was a counselor I worked with who used Herb. He'd been sober 25 years, some ungodly amount of time. And he used to say, he actually had a little sign on his desk. It was, you haven't quit anything until you've quit everything. And I would ponder that, like, what does that really mean? And I guess what it means now for me is all those things that grip me, that I'm under the control of, that are unhealthy for me, are things that I can turn to these steps about. I know I can. I know I have tools. What it's like now is having tools, having people in my life that are in this a solution that's going to work for me, and having people to inspire me. And I'm constantly inspired by what everybody says and how you live your lives on a day-to-day basis without practicing an addiction. So I'm going to keep coming. I'm in a phase, which I guess, this is 14. I'm in my 14th year. And I know that a lot of the people, when I was in Eugene, there was this group that was called the Old Broads Group. It was so great. So it was a women's group, and they called themselves, so they're allowed to call themselves Old Broads if they want to, right? It's not politically incorrect. And they were so clear about you just keep staying in the community. And I'm clear I'm going to stay in the community. What I do want to say is I'm glad this secular AA community is here. I am so grateful to have a circle of people where I don't have to pretend and say prayers to something that's not part of me, and where I can tell this story. I've told my story a lot in these almost 14 years. This is the first time I've actually ever told my real story. Like everything. I don't feel I'm editing. I'm not, oh, well, I can't talk about that. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not going away while I was gone. So I came back with a real appreciation for the traditions. I've always been kind of, the traditions. I'll look at my shoes while we read a tradition. And yet, I mean, if there had not been this community in whatever form it takes for me to fall into, to now flounder around and have all these questions at this phase of my development, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's such a gift. It is such a gift to be clean and sober. And I'm really grateful to have the tools, to have the hope that that's going to happen for another day and another day and another day. So thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. All right. That was great. You mentioned, a couple times about wanting to feel comfortable discussing other addictions in one's life, or the fact that this might be a venue for people to hash out things other than alcoholism, and part of the confusing part about the preamble is, so I've taken out all the references to alcoholism. It's just about sobriety. I don't know. For me, this is just about a group of people getting together and helping each other and learning. I do know that there's a lot of people that come around these days that alcohol wasn't their main problem, that hang out at these groups anyway. I guess I kind of secretly hope AA would just kind of become, I guess, viewed from the outside, more encompassing when it comes to, I don't know, reaching out with open arms for everybody. But that was really nice. I liked your story. I'm gonna pass around the microphone. If anybody's got, like I said, anything to say or comment on or questions to ask, have at it. Start with Marley.
Hi, Marley. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Deborah. It's good to see you. I remember I think it might have been the first night you came, or maybe the first night I met you. I knew I was immediately drawn to you, and I walked over to you, rushed over to you after the meeting, because I too have spent a lot of my life in other countries. And I spent 2 years in Tunis, Tunisia, and Northern Africa, and I came back in 2011 after witnessing them go through the Jasmine Revolution, and how different that made me view world politics and how it affected my life, watching these people fight for rights I take for granted every day. And you mentioned a little bit about struggling to get back in here. and it's hard. And I've been back close to 8 years. And it's still hard. Especially sometimes like the wrong language just comes to your head, like the wrong noun or something. But I don't know. I've always felt really connected to you, since we've met. And I would like to spend more time with you. Anyway, with that, I'll pass.
Thanks, Mara. I'm Greg, and I'm an alcoholic. I really enjoyed, right from the beginning, listening to you speak, especially about your family of origin and the secrecy around drinking. Something is going on, but nobody really knows. I recognize that immediately, because we certainly had our folklore about the family, but it didn't include alcohol, and all that came clear many years later. But and addressing that, it's not just the alcohol, it's the losing control over anything and letting it take us, and let it take us emotionally, so that we need that in order to feel better. That's a real key issue. And yes, we have many people here that are well acquainted with the things other than alcohol, and some of them, alcohol never was their problem, but they come in here, and I'm glad they do. So, I just thank you very much. I'm happy to meet you and to hear your story, and I'll pass it on.
I'm Pablo. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Pablo.
Thank you, Deborah, for your story. It was very good to hear. I don't know you, but I can identify with a lot of things that you said. I've only been coming to this group a couple of months, so just still kind of getting to know people. I really like this group in that really it's like I've gone to a lot of traditional AA groups, and a lot of them kind of like to focus on alcohol and alcoholism being AA. And, a lot of people did drink, but they also did some other drugs and substances. And to me, it seems a little bit silly to want to have to focus just on alcohol, because when you think about it, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the fuck you were. Can I say fuck? Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure.
You just did.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's. I mean, when you think about it, it's really we all sought something external to ourselves to use in order for us to feel okay with the world. And recovery, to me, has been, how do we feel okay? How do we get and live in this life without that? Using that external thing to fill sort of spiritual void in our bodies that we've used other things to fill with. Along those lines, for me, just a spiritual journey that makes sense to me. Connecting with other people and finding, a belonging, and a purpose in life. That's what I feel will help for long-term sobriety. And I'm just grateful to have a place to go for that. So thank you again. And I will pass the mic.
I'm Kana, I'm alcoholic. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. It was really great to hear, and it was very interesting to hear about your life and all the places you've been and kind of how you've gone through it. And so thank you.
I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, Deborah. Thank you for sharing your story. I did like that a lot. A couple things that kind of struck me is you mentioned community a number of times. And today I had a wonderful day. I went to the noon meeting. It was a great meeting. I really enjoyed myself there. Got to see a friend that came up from out of town, And then I talked to Wes a little bit after the meeting and just had a really, really nice time. And then I came home and I started working on some crap for the district. And I was kind of feeling guilty because I was behind on this stuff. I'm their treasurer and I wasn't doing my job. But then I got to talk to some people and it was nice. Now I'm here and it's very nice. But I say all of that because I think it was Friday or before this weekend, I was seriously ruminating in my mind. I would like to retire from AA because I've been doing it for so freaking long. I was like 30 fucking years. I'm like, come on, man. There's got to be a life other than this. Seriously. Because there's a lot of stuff I do, it's like, God damn. But on the other hand, I really enjoyed the connection that I get to make with other people. And so if I didn't have this, I'd have to have I think I'd have to have something. I'd have to do something. I'd have to have some sort of connection with other people, I guess. And it's so funny because that's not real. I don't really feel like I'm an extroverted person that likes to be around people. And definitely when I was drinking, I definitely wasn't that way at all. But since I've been in AA, this is my home. I just feel at home here. So I'm part of that community now. So I guess I'm not ready to retire from AA yet. So anyway, and then you were talking about the other addictions. And I think for me, it was alcohol that drove me in here. But, after I got sober for a while, I did start to recognize other addictions. And one thing I was able to quit was smoking. I did that after 10 years of sobriety. And that was a bitch to quit smoking. But, I guess it was just that I got comfortable enough with, being off alcohol and having a new life that I was able to ready to take that on. And then many, many years after that, I started looking at other things like sugar and stuff like that. And I am not successful whatsoever in dealing with those addictions. So, but I recognize them as addictions. And I guess I do because, I don't know, that's how I deal with stuff. And it is really an addiction too. Sugar affects your dopamine and all that kind of stuff. And I do believe that. But, for whatever reason, I had a bunch of sugar before I came to this meeting. But I still count myself as sober. Anyway, I'll pass that. Thank you very much.
All right. Deborah, did you have any other bits of wisdom for us? Our pleasure. My pleasure. All right. That's a wrap. Good job.